Alright guys, you're welcome once again to this video, straight up from the last video where we tested the camera and we made sure that the camera was working perfectly. So in this video, we are going to go straight into writing our registration functionality. And our registration functionality is pretty simple. The user enters his name, enters his email, enters his password, selects an image. We check to see if that image that the user has selected has a face in it. Basically, we detect for any face on the image. If there's no face, we tell the user that this image contains no face. And if there's a face, then we allow the image to go through. And then the user clicks on submit, and then we send those credentials, including the image that contains the user's face, to our server. Okay, so now let's get straight into programming. And what we are going to do here, first of all, is we're going to do this for both the camera and both the photo library. So we want this to be converted to a proper base64 URL. Because as it is now, it's not a base64 URL. We want this to be converted to a proper base64 URL so that we can pass it inside of an image tag. And so let's do that quickly. We're going to declare a variable here, and we're going to call this variable final data. And final data is going to be equal to data. Our images are going to have a type of JPEG or JPEG base64. Okay, and now we can just concatenate that with the base64 string, which is our image data. And we also need to copy this right here. And we'll need to paste that right here too. And what we can do also is we'll get back into the register page and we'll create a div, and we're going to call this div image holder. And we're going to have an image here. And we want to have an ID of, say, user image. And for this image holder, we're going to display this as none. Sorry. We're going to display this as none. So style, display, and display is going to be as none. And what we can also do here is to, for the image, right in our form, to be able to hold the base64 image, we're going to create an extra object for the form, and we're going to call this image, and we're going to say this dot the form dot image is going to be equal to final data, and then we can simply save that. So this the form the image is equivalent to our final data, and we can also do that here to say this dot form dot image is equal to our final data. And what we can do right now is, okay, we're going to leave this as display none. So let's get back here, and we are going to do a couple of things. First of all, we're going to give this div an element reference. So we're going to say register image, and we are going to access this register image element reference here. So we're going to need to import two things. Firstly, we're going to need to import viewChild, and we're going to need to import element reference. So having imported viewChild and element reference, we're going to need to access viewChild and element, and we're going to basically now create more like an instance to reference our elements, our div here, which has a register image as its element reference. And so we're going to say at viewChild, and viewChild will have register, we call it register image. And there's something I want to say here. If you're using Angular 7 and below, you don't have to do this, but starting up from Angular 8, you don't just pass the element reference, you also pass options, and the options could be of different type. But for this one, we're just going to have an option which says this is going to be static, and static should be false. All right, this was actually implemented starting up from Angular 8. For the viewChild, you'll have to add a second parameter. All right, and now we can just refer that to register image, which is going to be our reference for the register image. So basically, this is our reference for this. Okay, so now when we have this, now say of type of element reference, So having referenced that, we can now come here and get the image tag. So basically what we're going to say is this dot register image. This is the register image dot native element dot query selector, and we want to target, what do we call that again? We called it the ID is user underscore image, user image. So this is the register image dot native element. All right, and we're going to give this a variable. We're going to say let register user no, let's just call this check, or let's call this let's user image. All right, so let user image be equal to this. And now that we have access to the image, the next thing we want to do is we want to basically check to see whether there is a human face like, or basically a human face like object on the image. So next up is we're going to load the models, and to load the models we will need 3 different models. And the first model is the SSD mobile net v1. So we're going to say faceapi.net.ssd mobile net v1, ssd mobile net v1, yes. And we're going to load from URI. All right, and I already have this hosted in on my server, so I'm going to say techviews.com/models, and also we're going to load the second model, which is faceapi.net. So instead of getting into typing this, so now let's just copy this. And if you're actually hosting this on the server, you have to be sure that all your models are in the same folder. All right, so we have https www.techbuilds.com/models, and we are okay. This, we know the second one is SSD model. Actually, it's face landmark, so we'll just say face landmark 68 net. All right, face landmark 68 net. And the last model we're going to be loading is going to be the face recognition model. So we are going to copy that now and just put that in here. And this is going to be face recognition net. Okay, and if you're just doing face detection, anyway, for now we are just doing face detection, so we can just comment this out. And basically we just load the SSD model, mobile net TV, and the face landmark 68 net model, and we're actually loading it from this URL. Okay, so now having loaded the model, the next thing we want to do is actually to use that model to verify whether the picture that the user is taking actually contains an image file on it. So we're going to say check image will now be await. We're going to say face API dot detect. We want to detect all faces. Detect all faces. And in the course of detecting all faces, we're going to say okay, check image face API dot detect all faces. We actually just need a single face, not multiple face. So we are going to say, yep, we're going to say detect all faces first, and we're going to pass the user image, and we're going to say with face landmarks, and with face descriptors, all right, with face landmark, with face descriptors, and we're going to log that to the console. And next up is we are going to check if there are more than one face, or basically one facial object in the image. We're going to tell the user that, hey, there are more than one image here, or basically there are more than one face in this image. Please, we only want one image. Oh no, first of all, we're going to check if there's any face at all. Okay, so sorry, basically on the image we're going to say if there's no image, so we're going to say dot length. If there is no image, what we want to do is we're going to dismiss Okay, I thought I actually passed a loading controller here, but I did not. So we are going to need to do that. First of all, we're going to need to import a loading controller here, because we will need to wrap everything up in a loading controller so that while the action is taking place, the user will not be able to interact with the application basically. So we're going to say I loading ctrl, yes. And yes, so now what we are going to do now is here, right after here, once we begin loading the models, we want to pass everything inside the loading controller. So we're going to declare a constant and call this loading, and this is going to be this dot loading. We called it loading, loading controller, and dot create. And so we're going to create the first parameter, which is the message, and we're going to say checking for human faces. And the last parameter we're going to pass is the spinner, and basically we want to show the Android spinner, which is crescent. And what we actually need is a comma. Okay, and now with that being done, we can now say loading, all right, dot present. So we want to present it, and basically we just want the loader to show that, then it's going to return a promise. And because of our models, we are going to make this an async, all right. So we're going to use async here, and now we are going to copy everything from here up until here. And yep, so once we begin loading the models, then we detect all faces with landmarks with face descriptors. We check if there are no images basically, then we want to return. And then we also need to import our alert service which we created before. So we're going to import that, import from, and source app services alert service, and it's called alert service, and we are going to inject that into our constructor. So let's do it right next to here. And public alert is going to be of type alert service, and we are going to come here and say this dot alert dot present alert. And the first parameter is going to be error. The second parameter, which is the subheader, is going to be error. And the third parameter is going to be our message, which will say no face was detected on this image. And before we actually want to return this, we're going to dismiss this loader. So we want to dismiss the loader. And once it's gotten past this stage, we can also then check if the image if it's more than just a single image, because we want the user to only have one single image, because when we're performing the facial recognition, we are only going to detect for just a single face. We're going to just pick just a single face and then match them, and we just need only one single face from the user. Check image.length is greater than, so basically if it is greater than 1, we also want to do the same here and say only a single face is accepted. And we're going to say here and say only a single face is accepted, or something like that. And now that is just about that for detecting faces. You can see how simple, how like pretty easy this thing can actually be, facial detection. And having completed the facial detection, what we can do right now is we can just copy the same thing right here, copy this same thing right here, and then just pass the same thing for the camera. So we're going to copy the same thing right here. Let me just see properly where this actually begins. So this begins from here. So let's copy this from here up until I think it should be here. And we're going to place this same thing right in the camera. And yep. So we're going to place this same thing right in the camera. Here. And let's just go up a bit. We are going to remove this. And now we have the same functionality for both the camera and the photo library. So next up is to register the user. And to register the user, we would have to import the authentication service. And basically, all we just need to do is come here, import from source, app, services, authentication. And this is coming from authentication service. And this is the authentication service. So we are importing the authentication service. And now we're going to inject that here too by saying public auth service is of type authentication service. And having done that, we are going to go over to our register button responsible for logging the user in. And we are next up going to say loading. But first of all, we need to create another loading controller here. So this will be equal to this dot loading controller dot create. And we're going to create the message would be once user clicks the button, we're going to say registering your credentials, and we're going to say please wait. All right, and now we're going to say loading.then, and I like to have all right and async here. And now we're going to write all our login functionalities right in here. So we're going to say loading.then. Sorry, not loading.then. Sorry, loading.present.then. Loading.present. Present.then. Oh my god, what's wrong with me? Present. What's this thing converting to then? We've created the loading controller. So it's loading.present. The then. And why are we having this error? So let's just be sure. Let's see. Loading.present.then, of course. So why was it flagging me an error? So loading.present.then. And let's just see what the problem is. It says property present does not exist in type. Promise? Are you kidding me? Oh, sorry. The second parameter is spinner. And this is going to be a crescent. And still throwing an error. Why? What's it throwing an error for us? Sorry, I just noticed that. I'm supposed to use an await here since it's a promise, and that means that we'll have to call and sync here. And now that should be fine. So loading.present.then, and what we are going to do, and one more thing again is once this is done, once all being equal, everything goes just fine. For our loader, we want to dismiss the loader. So we're going to say here, once everything goes just great, we're going to say loading.dismiss. So this would basically dismiss the loader. And we also want to check for any errors. So if there's any error, we're going to just say this alert, that present alert, and we're going to present an alert, and that alert is going to say error, and this is going to say no image. Oh no, we're going to say there seems to be a problem. Please try again later. There seems to be a problem. Please try again later. And we can also log to the console the error, console.log error. Okay, so that is fine. Now here I want to do the same. No, we are not going to do the same here. So what we're going to do now is to get the user's credential and pass it into our service. So we're going to say this dot auth service dot we actually want to register, so dot register and register data which is of type any. We're going to pass the object which is this dot form, and this actually is returning a promise. So I'm sure the promise is returning. Is it a promise? But then let me just go to authentication service and be sure. Authentication service. Oh, it's not returning a promise. So what I can do now is to make it return a promise to promise, and make this of type any. And why is it still telling me error to promise do not exist? Hey, I have to get rid of subscribe just to promise and type of any, so that you can actually make it return a promise. And I'll just add that here too to promise, and just make this of type any too. Alright, so we can go back to register page.ts, and you can see now the then, and we have the data, and what we can do now is this dot service.register, we pass the data, and we can just log this to the console. We're going to say console.log, and we're going to say data, console.log data. So basically, let's get back to our API. So here is our API, and here is auth controller. And now let's just go down a bit. So now we can see here that if the user actually provides the right credentials and the user is to be registered, we're going to get a message here saying user registered successfully, and we're going to get a success here saying true. Okay, so what we're going to do here now is we are going to say basically what we're going to say is, first of all, we want to create a variable here called response, and we're going to come down here and say response. Let's make this a public variable. Public response is of type any. So response of type any, and we are going to come down here and we're going to say this dot response will be equal to data. Okay, so now that we have and this dot data to be equal to response, we're going to say this dot response dot has on property. So we're going to check if it has a property, but before we do that, let's place that inside an int tag. So we're going to say if this dot response dot has own property. So if it has the first property, if it has a property of success, all right, if it has a property of success, and this dot response dot success is equal to or is true. So basically, if the user has logged in successfully, or if the user has registered successfully, we are going to say this dot alert dot present alert, and we're going to show a message as success, right? Success. And the second one is going to say registered new user, and then the last one is going to say registration completed successfully. Registration completed successfully. All right, and before we show that, what we want to do is we want to just dismiss this loader. So loading the dismiss, loading the dismiss. Okay, and else. So basically, every other thing means that it was not true, because if we come over here and check the API, success true, user registered successfully. Every other thing here tells us invalid file type, only JPEGs allowed. There's always a message for us. So okay, instead what we can do here is not this way. You can say this dot response dot message. So this dot response dot message. Else, we're going to say loading dot dismiss, and now we're going to dismiss the loader, and we're going to say this dot alert dot present alert, and we're going to say failed and failed, and we're going to say this dot response dot message, and we're going to come here and say if there is an error. So if there's an error, then we are going to dismiss the loader. So loading dot dismiss, and so this is going to dismiss the loader, and we're going to say this dot alert dot present alert, and present alert, present alert, present alert, and this is going to be, we're going to say error here and error, and we're going to say there seems to be a problem, please try again later. There seems to be a problem, please try again later. And now we can save that, and we can also log the error to the console just to be sure, as well as whatever response we get here too. We can also log that to the console data. And so with that being done successfully, what we can now do is let me just be sure everything goes fine. And this ng on init, let me take it to the top. Let me just be sure everything is fine, and then we can now build for Android and test on our real device. And just place that here, save that. Alright guys, having checked through, I noticed a couple of things that we actually forgot to include. And the first of them all is, we're going to go into register page.html, and our image, you can see, does not have anything in here. So, and what we want to do is we want this form.image to be the image value that we passed inside of here. So we're going to say form.image. And next up is that we also want to perform this same check in the camera. And basically in the camera, I think in the camera we only checked, okay, we did the same thing in the camera, we checked all through. And the last thing we also were supposed to have done, which I skipped and then found out it was really important, was this face recognition model is actually required. If we miss out on this, I remember it was going to throw a kind of an error. So let's include this face recognition model here, and let's also include the face recognition model here. And together with the await of the face recognition model, which are the last things left, is in the authentication service.ts, we also forgot to return this because this is a promise. If we don't return this, it's going to tell us an undefined error when we try to use .then for it. All right, so now we save this and everything is fine, and now we can ionic Cordova build Android. And our build is done successfully, and I just installed the application on my Android device, and I'm mirroring my Android device here. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to kind of minimize this a little bit and get my Android device, which I'm currently mirroring, and then put that right next to this. Yes. And I'm going to go straight to application, which I just installed, called My App. And oh, I was already playing around with it before now. All right, so let's try and register a new user. Let's call this Bascardino, and the email is going to be bascardino@gmail.com, and the password is going to be password basically. And now watch what happens if I decide to select a single image that has no face on it. So let's pick one image here that has no human face on it. So let's choose this image, and you're going to see it's telling us checking for human faces, and you can see no face was detected on this image. And if I click that again and I go to image, and I choose an image that has so many faces, so let's just pick up one. Yep, and right here we have this image that has so many faces, and guess what? It's going to tell us only a single face is accepted. All right, and all these things we wrote here. So let me just go there, go to register page.ts, and we wrote them here. We said if no image, tell the user no face was detected on this image. If the image is more than one, only a single face is accepted. All right, so now let's now upload an image that has just a single face. I'm gonna go to image, and I'd like to go with this image. And you see it's telling us checking for human faces. And yep, it goes because there's just a single image on it. And now once I click on register, it's going to tell us registering your credentials. Please wait. And you can see user is registered successfully. And this is bascadino@gmail.com. And the password is password. So now let's just get over to our browser. And let me log into my DB. All right. And now once I click on go, you can see bascadino@gmail.com. You can see the image. And if I get back to our application, no, our API, and I just go down here, you can see this image. This is the image here that we just uploaded right now. All right, this is the image that we just uploaded right now. All right, so guys, that is that for registration with facial detection. In the next video, we're going to be doing logging in with facial recognition.